Well, hello folks, and welcome to episode 225 of Retro Power Uncut, and we are here by Project Wasabi. Now, you're going to have to bear with me a bit this week. I'll say right up front that Cal is away this week. He's on holiday. His kid's half term. He's away in Wales, and I, for my sins, ended up getting flu last weekend and thus had quite a chunk of this week off. So it's a little bit of a catch-up for me today in terms of what's been going on. But I'll do my best, so bear with me. Starting on Wasabi, Bobby has been busy on the A-pillar structure and the inner wing structure. Obviously you know where we were at from last week in terms of now having both the doors bolting to these hinge mounts, which are currently sticking out like antlers from a reasonably flimsy, not that flimsy, but reasonably flimsy, because it's only just two skins, it's only just a double skin panel in a A-pillar area structure. So Bobby's now doing all of the major structural parts that have got to go around that, which this tube here is one of, and he's done a rather nice job at this. And he's going to have various footage of this, but basically that tube is going to sit in there like that and generate the major strength to this corner of the structure of the car. It's a way of tying in the inner wing top to the A-post structurally and making all that an integral area, so that once then the A-pillar is all boxed in, that'll all be enclosed inside the sheet metal work. You really wouldn't even know it's there once it's all been boxed in, but it just is going to add a chunk more strength to this corner, which is, as anybody familiar with the structure of a car will know, and it's fairly obvious really, is quite a high stress area. The front of the car is cantilevered to an extent. Now the lower rail is also cantilevered, so it's kind of in a parallelogram fashion. So there's actually quite a lot of compressive load on this corner, and we want to feed that compressive load back into the structure, down into the A-pillar and up into the upper A-pillar, and across into the scuttle structure. And to do that, we need to be able to make sure that this corner is strong, and that's why that tube is going in there, and that's some very nice work by Bobby using our old manual kit. We don't really have, we just don't do that much tube work here in terms of, you know, it'd be lovely to have a CNC tube bender and CNC bending rolls and all the rest of it, but we just, we don't do that much tube work. So we have a manual bender, which I got many years ago from Matt at Stakes, who's actually, funnily enough, one of the very early bits of kit I bought from him, probably 15 years ago, I should think. I got that from Matt. And also the tube roller over there, which also came from Matt probably about 10 years ago. Using those two bits of kit and a bit of heat and a bit of brute force, Bobby's managed to make that shape. Some of the bends are too close together to get in the bender, hence the needing a bit of lateral thinking to be able to get the bends affected. But he's done that, done a really nice job. He's now made a mirror image of it for the other side. He's got a plan together of what's going to happen to these areas here, the modifications that are going to happen here, and the sheet metal that's going to go in there to replace what's there now. So yeah, all coming together really nicely, good progress. It's really, I think Bobby's enjoying now being able to get into making some sort of structural parts where they're slightly less dimensionally critical and slightly less obtuse than dealing with the hinges was, because that was not a fun job. However, it's now in the past and he can move on. So yeah, that's really good progress by Bobby. Moving on from that, we'll come on to the E-Type V12, and Matt is lead loading. Again, there's a lot of lead going on. He is pretty much there with this. There's been one or two other little jobs going on as well in the background, but the major thing is that Matt's pretty much got the lead on this side of the car all wrapped up now. It's extremely close and it's looking really, really good. There's no point me swinging that door shut now and showing you, because it's not quite there. It's still just finishing off the back edge of the door here, but you can kind of get the idea looking at the A-pillar area, the sort of standard of finish. It's really looking very, very nice. Now some people would argue that, you know, you shouldn't need lead in the car, yada yada yada, and then some people would argue, why use lead, why not just use filler? So you kind of stuck between the devil and the deep in that discussion. However, Jaguars from the factory came with a very large amount of lead in this area, and without completely changing the way the body shell structure is created in that area, we can't put it together without some lead loading there. There's basically there's a seam at the bottom there and there's a seam up here which are recessed and designed to be lead covered. So we could cut those out and make them flush and get rid of the lead that way, but then it's impossible to panel beat most of this area because there's no access from the back. So whilst you could generate welded seams there to get a nice flush finish, I don't think that would really be a very good solution because you wouldn't be able to panel beat them and get all that metal finish properly. So realistically, the solution is lead. That's what's on there, and Matt's done a very, very nice job of it. And say he's extremely close now. He's got the sill finished, got the sill blending into the door nicely. He's got the door blending into the C pillar nicely, the B pillar nicely. Yeah, it's all looking really, really good. As I say, you'll have to bear with me. It's not been a good week earlier on this week for me. My brain is somewhat foggy. Matt's then about to move on to the other side of the car and get on to that side and basically replicate what he's done this side on that side. And at that point, I think we're pretty much at the point where the metal parts of the outer body are all good. We have the carbon front end, which the inner is having the tooling made currently at KS Composites. The outer, we already have the tooling. We've got to put one little modification and insert into the bonnet mold tool, and then we should be able to make the final bonnet outer and inner in carbon fibre. At that point, we pretty much have a finished body, and that is quite a stage to be at. Now, let's not run away too much with that because we do still have some bits of dry build work to do. And I know that Cal's very keen to continue the dry build in a few areas. At the risk of holding up other areas, the potential time saving by doing those dry builds, that dry build properly, is much greater than the potential loss on being able to progress other areas. So that's the situation with the V12 E-Type, progressing nicely. Yeah, I think that's where we're at on that. So that pretty much covers where we're at in terms of the projects in here. As I say, we're not going to dwell on the Aston. Martin's done a little bit of planishing on the roof again, but we've had lots of other work for him to do this week, so he's really not had a lot of time on that. And the Scimitar project is currently awaiting various things that need doing, mainly some reinforcement jobs on the fiberglass part of the body shell, and then some rough chopping of the fiberglass part of the shell to do some very rough fit up over the chassis and start determining the next route forward on that. But that can't happen until a few other things have moved around in here, so that's where it's at. And then the elephant in the room, or not elephant in the room, is obviously the XJC that was here that isn't here anymore. Well, that has made the move forward, and that has just been, hence why I'm in my tasteful overalls. I've just finished zinc metal spraying that. Mark has blasted that this morning. I'm sure he'll tell you about that in a minute, but Mark's just blasted it. I've just zinc metal sprayed it, and then it's gone through into the body shop. But I think that's probably a good point to hand over to Mark and let him give you the rundown on what the body shop guys have been up to.
All right, welcome back to another episode. Is that my normal voice? Is it? Apparently I've got a show voice, but whatever. All right, so today, media blasted this. It's not a different voice. No, we're keeping this in. No, shut up. These are the workers on the boss. Shut up. It is. All right, so yeah, forget these. Media blast this morning. Hate doing it, but someone's got to do it because these ain't man enough. Then I've got to tidy it up, massive sand pit. So yeah, this is all now. We'll just put some of that rust remover fix. There's just some little pits because I couldn't blast the major panels because you'll get that. So we've just put the water stuff on, which isn't water, not harmful. Leaving that on to just dry, that's what the sheet's on, to make it like speed up a bit. Then hopefully DA off in the morning, get it into the booth, epoxy coat it all over, inside engine bay, everywhere what's bare metal. Don't have to go back over the zinc coating. Jamie's got footage of that, I suppose. Nat's probably spoke about it. So yeah, that's how far we are with that. The guys are prepping the doors. because they've had new skins, but around the edges you always get that ripple effect where they've been hammered on. So they're just doing that, just getting the odd little wave out. There's not a lot of filler on there, that's hardly anything. Gaz just blocking over this with 80. Polyester will get the rest, but we'll do that when we get to the car, to the stage where we're going to polyester, build it all back up with the panels, polyester the whole lot, so we know that everywhere's got an even coat. So when we block across the door shuts, wings, you're going to have the same material hopefully. So that's that with that. Jamie's also done footage of me painting the Jensen vents and all the grill and all that, because I had to black direct them, take off the polished bits along the fins, and then matte lacquer them. And also we've got here, people have already noticed it's Dave's Alpha we've got down with the Millington. It's down the den at the minute and the gearbox done. But these carbon full panels, can't remember where we got from them, I'm not going to slag them off. But a bit of vibration has made them split down the seam. As you can see there, we've had to repair it, bond it back together. So then, probably tomorrow, I won't get around to it. Monday, I'll blow the colour in down that end. Just got to blow a bit of colour here, clear coat it, polish it, send it off for snake oil, and that's it. So this week, busy, busy, busy. See you next time.
So thank you for that, Mark. And I think that pretty much wraps up in here. I'm going to be unusually brief this week, as I say, I am worn out, no longer ill, but rather worn out. We will now have a move on into the assembly shop, and I'm going to hand over to me in there, and we're going to try desperately to remember, or I'm going to try desperately to remember everything that's happened in there. Well, hello me. Here we are in the assembly workshop, and we're going to start at this end for no particular reason. There's not a lot to report on Project Kuma, other than, as you can see, it is now bereft of engine, and we've got to see what the situation is with that. It's unfortunate. I suspect, and this is reading into the crystal ball, this is going to be one of those situations where everybody has done everything they could do in their utmost to make sure nothing went wrong, and something went wrong. I strongly suspect from the conversations that have happened so far is that I don't think anybody could have done any more than they had done to make sure that there was nothing wrong with the engine. So we shall see. The suspicion at the moment is potentially a casting issue, but we shall see. We will enlighten further when we know more. I don't want to say too much and then find out that we've dropped a colossal calamity somewhere, but I don't think we have. Yeah, we'll see where that one goes to. The other bit of progress that has occurred on Kuma this week, and is looking rather smart, is the mirrors. It's been a little while since Project 1 left us, the other sister car to this car, so it's been a little while since you'd have seen the beautiful wing mirrors on that one, and have now, of course, or door mirrors as they are on this car, but we now have the new mirrors all finished, painted, assembled and on the car, and looking rather good they do too. You'll recall from previous episodes there's quite a lot of work in those, and quite a tricky bit of machining. Again, credit to Jonathan Plumridge at PBE CNC for taking on the job of machining some of those mirror parts, particularly the bezel assembly that goes around in front of that retains the glass, and that then comes around the side. Actually, I think it's just a finisher. I say it doesn't retain the glass, but it is the finisher, which goes around and then has the Retro Power emblem along the side of the mirror. That is a really, really tricky piece to machine, and certainly a lot of people would have just refused to machine it. Yeah, quite impressive work, and they're looking really, really smart on the car. It's one of those things. It's so nice to see the pieces come together, and obviously there's quite a long period of time while these things amalgamate and come together, and now they have. It's really looking very smart. So that's all looking good. I'm going to move along here. We're going to pause by Churchill. Now, I know Ant has been busy on this. I think other people may have been working on it as well, but I know that Ant has spent most of his week working on this, and to that end, there's quite a few bits now attached. There's a few sort of more trivial items like headlights now fitted. The oil cooler's fitted, oil cooler pipework's fitted, but more significant things like the front suspension is now fitted. The front cross member, wishbones, uprights, all of the associated parts that you may remember from an awfully long time ago. George had drawn up the replacement front suspension assembly for this car, which was based chiefly on Jaguar X300 parts, but narrowed. We had to make a couple of deviations away from stock parts because of the track change, but where we could, we tried to use stock X300 parts, and those parts are now fitted, so that's coming along nicely. Ant's got those in. He's also been running the battery cables into the car as well, getting the main power feeds in. He's also got the power steering reservoir in, the power steering lines in, the power steering pump is on. That may have been on the engine already actually, but that's all now connected up. And then I think last week the aircon compressor and alternator were fitted. They're now fitted properly. The belt run's been checked. The belt lengths have been worked out. I don't know if the belts are actually on. Yes, the belts are on. So the belt lengths have been worked out. The correct belts have been ordered. They're now on because that's all custom. None of that's original. And then the aircon lines are also in place, the engine to compressor side of it, and the aircon lines to the refrigerant lines to the bulkhead are also in place. So yeah, that's all come together pretty nicely now. Radiators, I think the radiator was all in before. This is where I lose track a little bit. Not being on this side of the workshop that often, there's a lot of things I've missed out, that I miss out on seeing. But yeah, it's coming together really nicely now. Starting to look like a car, which is a significant step forward. Things are coming together nicely. It really needs me to get my act in order and get on and get those rear brass window surrounds finished, which is a job I keep sort of putting on the back burner slightly, but I really do need to get that done. Moving on from that, I think at that point it's going to be a bit of a whistle-stop tour, as I say, because there's quite a bit of detail that I'm not necessarily au fait with. I can move on to this area here. I'm going to kind of gesticulate in this general area because James has been choreographing the strip down of various parts to do with the XJC. Now, obviously we left off with the XJC next door. Picking back up with the XJC in here may seem a little premature to be doing some of the jobs we're doing, but there is a very good reason. If you recall, when we built the engine for Churchill, right next to us there, the AJ16 for that, we had some parts supply issues, particularly bearings are quite tricky to get hold of. And so to that end, Adam has wisely decided to try and get ahead on that on the engine for the XJC Portofino project. So as soon as we could get the engine out from dry build next door, it's been brought in here. James has stripped all the peripherals off it. He's doing some work on them, getting them all ready for varying degrees of refurbishment work. But he's also got the engine block all blanked off and ready so we can bead blast it, and that's my next job, hence keeping the overalls on, is I'm hopefully going to get through there and bead blast that next. But he's been working on getting all the peripherals removed from that and all stripped down, so that we can be getting all the refinishing processes on track for that. But the other key thing is we can get the core of the engine then disassembled and find out what we're going to be dealing with in terms of crankshaft. Does it need grinding? What size bearings are we going to actually need? Just to try and get ahead on all of the parts ordering, so that we don't find ourselves waiting on long lead times on parts, which we did last time. We were held up very severely for various reasons. The other fairly, not major hold up, but significant delay is that the block is, I very much doubt the bores are going to be perfectly good. They might be pretty good, but it's very rare the bores are good enough to just go again. But again, we won't know until we strip the engine completely. We don't want to strip the engine completely until we've bead blasted the outside of it, because it's much easier to mask the engine up properly while it's still assembled. So we're going to bead blast all the outside of the engine, then we'll strip it, and then we'll find out the condition of all the internals. As I say, the delay on this engine is that nobody makes a liner for this engine. It's a dry linered engine. And so we've had to machine out the original liners, or we didn't. Cylinder rebores in Nuneaton that do our machining work machined out the original liners. They did a very nice job, machined them right till they were just sort of tin foil thin on the Loctite that holds them in, then broke out the remains from all of the bores, cleaned up the bores, and then machined new liners from a liner that would fit. It's a Westfield liner that had approximately the right dimensions. It needed it was significantly too long. It needed cutting down. Needed some alteration, but they found a Westfield liner that would do the job. And then the block was re-dry linered using those Westfield liners. But again, that's a job that we want to get in hand early on this time. So that's all the reason why we've got engine parts, an engine in bits, effectively, for a car that's not even in this workshop yet and won't be in this workshop for some time. It's just trying to get the ducks in a row a little bit early. You know, we built a lot of cars with crate engines, and there it's fairly straightforward. You know, your engine's new anyway, you don't really have so much of a problem. But obviously on cars where we're refurbishing the engine as well, or rebuilding to as new as well, the engine, then we need to get that process in hand at a reasonably early stage. But we can't do that while we're still using the engine for dry build, and there's no point trying to do the dry build on the car next door in the metal shop with a rebuilt engine. I guarantee at some point that engine is going to get a load of grit inside it. That is not what we want, and it will be damaged at some point. So there's no point trying to do it with an already built engine either. There's no point trying to attack it that way and have the engine built first. So anyway, that's the background to that lot. So yeah, James has been stripping down all this lot. He's pretty much there with all that now. And then also on that subject, George Sinclair has picked up, amongst a few other jobs, actually first, I'll step back slightly. George was the early part of the week was finishing off a job he'd started last week on rebuilding the door hinges for the XJC. There was some wear in the pins, and in fact I believe a number of the pins in those hinges had actually broken. So George jigged the hinges on the mill, bored them all out to accept phosphor bronze top hat bushes, bored all the other halves of the hinges out to also accept bushes, and then used ground, and then got sourced ground stainless steel, I believe. They may be stainless steel, or are they going to be Xylon? I can't remember. But basically ground shoulder bolts to act as the new door pins, with door hinge pins with phosphor bronze bushes in both halves of the hinges now, so there's no potential wear anywhere in the hinge mechanisms. So that was George's first XJC related task, and then he's now picked up, while air conditioning compressors are fresh in his mind, he's picked up doing a rebuild on the air conditioning compressor for the AJ16 engine for the XJC. While it was fresh in his mind, he's just getting on with getting that rebuilt as well. So that's pretty much that, all said and done. I'm bound to miss a load of things. And then last, I think I'm just going to gesticulate from here, to be honest. The Interceptor, which is looking stunning over there, I have to say the colour is absolutely mind-blowing. It looks incredible. There have been a few little bits of forward progress made on that as well, in that the final panels are on it. The bonnet's now been fitted. There's a great deal of care taken over that, and the bonnet is now fitted. And then there's been some work to do on the doors. So Anthony is doing some work on the doors. He's currently putting the window winder mechanisms in and building up the door internals. But prior to that, there was a bit of an issue with the door check straps. We were aware that the door check straps had been altered prior to our dealing with the car. We weren't necessarily, and we're still not necessarily 100% sure why. We think that the hinges that are used on this car are not original Jensen ones, and they may have changed the geometry of the hinges slightly, but we're not quite sure. But in any case, the door check straps don't work particularly well. So George Sinclair has done a little redesign of the door check straps now and changed the shape of them so they clear better and they do their job better, and he has then rebuilt those with some new parts, so they're actually now a correctly functioning door check strap. So that's all now up and running and good to go, and Ant is now getting all that the door structures put together, which will be a nice step forward. I think at that point what I'm going to do is I will skip on to Allegros, because everybody will want to know where the Allegros are at. However, the Allegro progress is pretty much all linked to work that's been going on in the CAD cave, and I have a feeling that Luke might quite like to show you some of what he'd been working on himself, because it's been quite a proud moment, I think, for Luke, seeing some of his design work come to finished parts and be fitted in a car by his own hand. So over to Luke.
Breathe. Hi guys, welcome back to the CAD Cloister, and this week I'm going to start with Churchill. I think for the last like 3 weeks in a row I've been saying, wait for this to happen and you'll see it get made finally. Well, we're at that point now. I finished bonding together the second rear door card parts, and that's with Richard now getting trimmed. I have also put together the rear of the center console, made the bracketry for that, and then yesterday we got that all aligned in the car, used Stu's funky laser beams to make sure everything was straight, marked out the holes to be riv nutted. Assembly now knows where those are, and they know that they can be drilled and riv nutted, and then that means Richard can basically get on with molding in the rear seats and trimming those, and then we can literally have the entire rear interior done for Churchill. And then very, very exciting, Allegro. So we had the machine door handles back from Jonathan Plumbridge at PVE CNC. Absolute legend, every single time hits out the park. I've offered those up, mounted them in the car, they fit great. I'm stoked with them. They're gonna look so good when they're anodized, and we've got the magnets in with that cool little detail strip going in. So very, very happy with that. Did a whole dry build on the door card. And then right here, we have the lower dash section. Cal mentioned last time about getting messed around by a certain 3D print company in terms of getting this quoted for a whole print, and that we were going to split it down into sections and then bond it together. So I've done that. It's actually gone together really nicely. I don't know if on video you'll even be able to see the bond lines, but I'm really happy with that. Again, machine centerpiece. I can't remember off the top of my head whether Andy or Jonathan did this, but either way, cracking job on that. A little bit of fettling and that's fitted in great. So I had that bolted up into the car earlier today. We still need to riv nut the panel, so it's a bit of a tricky one trying to get the nuts on the top, but that won't be an issue when that is riv nutted. So George, I think, is going to put those in after lunch, and then I can do a final fit of this, check everything, check the clearance on certain stuff, and then hand that over to Richard as well to be trimmed. And then I'm pretty sure that's it on the Allegro. And then what else have I been on with? Slight edit on the fan housing, but that was literally half an hour. Oh yes, XJC color renders. So we have a model now of an XJC, and the car is actually being zinc metal sprayed as I speak, and then it will obviously be going over to paint shop. Quite crucial for paint shop is they need to know what color they're going to be painting it. So I'm doing a couple different variations of colors, couple different blues, couple different greens similar to what Utah was, and then a few interior iterations to go with those colors, because obviously that's pretty important as well. Those are being sent out to the client, as well as a couple of other spicy renders of the XJC with like all the tweaks that we made from it from a standard one. So the grills that we're adding, rear tail lights that we're adding, the mirrors that we've designed for it, yada, yada, yada. That looks awesome. It's also given me a bit of a time to get my rendering a little bit better, because obviously you want to keep improving and improving your skill sets. And yeah, other than that, it's just been a bunch of little small jobs that Kyle gave me on this very handy list right here. So I think that's it for me of what I can talk about. And then I'm gonna briefly touch on George. Very, very exciting. The DBS chassis is now all but done, like very, very last few tweaks, and then it is literally done. But we're gonna leave you on a cliffhanger for that one, because we're gonna do a big reveal of that next week.
Videos now.
He's doing his video now. He's doing a very, very cool assembly video, which not only is good for the client to see all the work that's been gone into it, but it also helps with the metalworks guys down the bottom, as they can watch that video, figure out what needs to be cut out, how the assembly of it needs to go together, the order of assembly, yada, yada, yada. And yeah, it's going to look really, really cool as well. So I think on that note, I will hand back down to downstairs.
Right, well, thank you very much for that, Luke. And at that point, I'm going to hand over to Richard down at the den to give you a little update on the trim work that he's been getting on with for some projects that are going on down at the den.
How's it, everybody? Good to have you back. Lots have happened. Here's some seats. I've now assembled the MX5 seats that's going into the MGB. So they come out nice. They still need a bit of a rub and a slap and a bit of heat, and then they'll look pretty when they go in, and then just the plastic part. So we've parked them, happy with that. You'll remember, so these are MX5 seats that we're putting in an MGB. And we're doing that because this kit for the seat rails is available. And all that it is that's about a 10mm plate, and I've obviously laser or plasma cut it out. And what it does is it allows you to bolt this to the floor of the car, and then the MX-5 seat rails then lines up, because usually the difference is the distance between the two bolt holes. Okay, so easy peasy. This is what they advertise it, right? Bolt that into the car, bolt your MX-5 seats in. No fabrication is needed, is what I said last week. Guess what? It is. Some not so serious, some. So on these rails, on the newer vehicles, on the MX-5, this specific one, the seat is tilted, and how they did that was to put an angle onto the seat frame. So we need to straighten it on the one side, which is okay, because it seems to be just bent over. So we're going to heat that up and try and just bend it a little bit. We'll see how that goes. The instructions actually said just put it in a vice grip, take a pair of adjustable pliers and bend it. But on the other one, we've got a problem, because that's got like a triangular wedge sort of welded into it. So there's a lot more structure in this. So you can't simply just put those together, because you don't have a flat surface, so you lose all the strength. So what we're going to do is we're going to just cut that out. Nat and his fabrication guys cut it out, re-weld it, and then we'll get Mark and them just to give it a lick of paint, and then they'll look good. The seat will sit flush in the car. It will be strong, which is most important. And then we can then adjust if we want to put a bit of a forward or backwards tilt onto the seat. We'll rather make some proper metal spaces and do it that way, rather than just relying on having a seat that's tilted forward, because the instruction says, oh, just bolt it on like that. It's not even noticeable. Anyway, so that's that. We're going to sort that out. So nothing is easy, as they say. Take a deep breath and get on with it. So seats are done. Seat frames are done. Then the next thing is Jamie's got some shots. You'll see all the door cards. We replaced all the normal millboard, hardboard cards. They're all warped and stuff, as everybody knows with these classic cars. So we upgrade them to the 3mm die bond, which is it's like a composite board with laminated in between two thin pieces of aluminium, which makes it really nice to work with, easy for me to manually cut, and also it will never warp. It can get as wet, you can literally throw it in a bathtub of water, take it out or leave it out in the rain, nothing will happen to it. So really good stuff, this is for life. So I've reshaped, but with that, because it's a bit more rigid, I had to do a little bit of tweaking here and there. We also put some speakers in, but all of that's now dry fitted. We're happy with that. Everything fits. It's ready to pattern and trim, because we do change the design a little bit, so that's fine. But you might have noticed all the little yellow stickers, which is just masking tape on there, and that's because I've worked out a better way of hiding these hidden clips and not having push through on your facing surface. Previously, I don't know, some people might remember, previously what I've done is to hide the push through of the clip, I put an extra layer of foam on there, and then I sanded that down. So now I've worked it out, like if I use a Forstner bit, I can recess the hole, then put the clip in, so that sorts out the surface level, that's then flush there, and then all I do is I take a bit of masking tape and I just bridge it over, and then I put another round stamp in there, so because the clip needs to move so it can self-level as you put it in the door card. And then you'll also notice that I put this little red black ring at the back, and the only reason I'm doing that is because I'm recessing it in the front, and it's just a case of I'm putting back what I took out, but just in a different place, and that then just fills up the space, and the clip is nice and tight, and it doesn't wiggle backwards or forwards to the front and the back of the card, which I'm really chuffed with. So when this is done, you guys are going to see my new method of putting clips into door cards. You'll be seeing that in the next coming weeks. So that done, then I've actually got some more. That was a Churchill door card. Luke has printed. Remember, we went on and said, oh, we just did one just to test and learn. This is the second one. This one already, although it looks crude, because we printed in sections because of the size of the 3D printer, this one is way better than the first one. So we've learned some lessons from that. So this will go a little bit quicker than the previous one, less prep work. I've already cut and sewn the cover, so it's prep that, stick that on, and then just glue it, and then here's the little speaker bezel, so that's the other side. Once that's done, the guys are busy with the center console on Churchill that goes through the back seat. So once we got the 2 rear quarter cards, the center console, I can then start shaping seats, and I get to play with my bandsaw again, which I always like. So that's something that I need to do. So you can see we're busy in here. Cal might have mentioned this a week or 2 ago, I can't remember, but this is the Ford Capri. So there's the console. This is typical, we're redesigning the top of the console, but using some of the existing. And what we're going to do is we're going to just do this in sections as well. So the next step, so Luke's done this, he's printed it. That just needs to be, it fits nicely in there. So there's a little bit here that needs to be cut off. Those will be painted, but how it's going to work is, again, similar to the Allegro sort of size skirts. We strip this back now. I'm going to prep and trim this, then we put it on, and then we can see the physical gaps and spacings, because this is also from a classic car, so nothing is square and straight and perpendicular anymore. So we just do it piece by piece, and then we know we build this puzzle as we go, so that we don't have to redo things, rather undo a little bit at a time rather than the whole lot. And that is that from me. I'll see you guys next week.
So thank you very much for that, Richard. Excellent as usual. And at that point, I think what we're going to do this week is not go into any more detail on the goings on at the den. There are various things, quite exciting things in progress down there. However, I think we've probably got enough for this week, and I think what we'll do is save that up until there's a little bit more to show next week, and also Cal will be able to cover it, and I won't be running out of mental capacity to remember everything. But needless to say, the Fiat Dino that you will have seen down at the den, things have been happening to that. You'll be interested to see what's going on there. We're sort of unfolding the pages of a book with that one, so you'll be interested to see what's going on there, and also obviously the MG that Richard's talked about. There is progress on multiple avenues on that as well, not just the interior work. So I think next week we'll catch up on that. So I think at that point I'll wrap up for this week, and next week it'll be back to Cal and myself. So have a good one, and we'll see you in a week's time.